Joining me on stage here is North Carolina head coach Anson Dorrance, and student athletes Alessia Russo, Lata Rubenmoy, and Taylor Otto. We'll begin with an opening statement from Coach Dorrance and then open it up for questions for the student athletes first.
Well, I'm very proud to be here with my three fabulous captains. We've thoroughly enjoyed the season. We've got a wonderful team of very fun kids to be with. The whole season has been an absolute joy, and we're thrilled to be in the Final Four.
Questions?
Hi, Anson. Nice to see you again. Elliot Allman, San Jose Mercury News. Obviously, this is old hat for you. We've sat there in this position many times. But the landscape's really changed. I mean, every great player used to go down to Chapel Hill. Now they're going to Stanford, UCLA. They're going all over. Yet here you are with a team that's as solid as many that we've seen from you in the past. What has been the secret for this particular team?
Well, first of all, let me puncture the myth that you started with. Every great player did not come to Chapel Hill, but obviously when you look back historically, that's the way a journalist would like to explain it. Someone that has a frigging clue knows that back in the day, basically New England dominated. And so our ambition was to see if we could compete with the original teams. We were the first varsity in the South, so there was all sorts of different journeys for us to get to a position where we could recruit effectively. And the biggest challenge for us is actually what we're dealing with here. The soccer hotbed in the United States has always been Southern California, always. And so the challenge is how many of those Southern California kids can you get? And the more you get, the more effective you're going to be. And obviously those are the kids that populate the schools that are here every year. So has the landscape changed at a youth level? Well, not really. If you look at the national teams from the beginning, Southern California has been dominant, and the schools that can pick up those kids can also compete effectively. But I appreciate the tenor of your question because it was complimentary. And yeah, we've tried to figure out ways to end up with great kids, but actually sitting in front of you is one reason we're here. Because now it's almost impossible for us to get a kid that's recruited by Stanford or UCLA or Cal or Santa Clara. So what did we have to do? We had to go to England. So 2 out of the 3 that are sitting up here are Brits. Why? Because we struck out with the Southern California kids. And so we had to figure out different weapons. And so one of my favorite expressions in practice, the British are coming, the British are coming, the British are coming, when Alessia hits a shot in the upper corner and a lot to strip someone. And yeah, the British are coming, and we got another one coming in next year. So by God, we're going to keep mining that wonderful island. Because why? Because we want to be back here. And since we do strike out consistently with the elite players, we've got to figure out a different route to get in. We're not the first school to decide this, and obviously we took lessons from our partner in Tallahassee. The Florida State Seminoles, because obviously they also struggle to get the top kids to come in, so where they had to go, they've had to go overseas. And so all we have right now is our solution to try to compete. And so our solution to try to compete is to go anywhere we can to find an elite player. And there's this wonderful island between Europe and the United States, and that's where we've gone, and they have put us in this wonderful position.
A question for the player, maybe Taylor. Anson talks about the positivity of the season. Last game you guys did receive some harsh news with Emily Fox going down with an injury. What's been the team morale after that injury, and do you guys feel like you're coming into this trying to win one for her?
For sure. Emily's obviously a great player. She's had a great year. We're devastated that that happened, but she's a big reason why we're here. She's a big reason why we came back against USC, so it would be wrong for us not to play for her, and it would be wrong for us not to come out here and win a championship for her.
Going out, CougFan.com. You just mentioned about the recruiting landscape. When you look at your foe on the other side of things, what Coach Schollenberger's done at Washington State, bringing in dynamic athletes up to Pullman. If you've ever heard of Pullman before. What's that say about what he's done with his program?
Yeah, he's done a wonderful job. We watched his team play several times, obviously because they were in a bracket with Virginia. And obviously Virginia's a conference rival. And so to see how effectively they played against one of the best teams on the East Coast. And a team that honestly was, I think, ranked #1 for maybe 2/3 of last fall. And to have his team come into their home and win is an absolutely remarkable achievement. And then to keep winning. They basically blew up that entire bracket. And for them to do that is to his credit, his staff's credit, his credit, and his kids. And we've watched his kids. And trust me, we don't sit in our position because we disrespect teams. We don't. One thing we've always been very good at is we respect everyone we play. And I learned this from coaching on the men's side, honestly. It's one of the biggest problems with coaching men is they all think they're God's gift to athletics. And so if an elite men's team is playing against a team that's unranked, you can be assured that your men are going to basically walk out there like all they've got to do is to warm up and win. And the other team's going to be out there for blood. And on the men's side, it's just fraught with upsets because of hubris, one of the most wonderful characteristics of the elite male athlete. One of the things I love about coaching women is they don't suffer from that. Even the elite women do not suffer from hubris. And so what I love about coaching women is they respect every opponent. And we certainly respect Washington State and what they've done.
What have you seen from the attacking side of WSU? A lot of, imposing ladies with speed, and all those characteristics. Morgan Weaver and Miss Bennett, to name a few.
I'm going to get your business card and you're going to give my pregame, because this is very good. Yes, they are outstanding, and they hunt. We're not going to be comfortable, playing the ball around the back, because these are hunters, because we watch them hunt. And also, when Washington State gets the ball, they go to goal. They don't pass the ball around the back for half an hour and then, just to pump up their possessional statistics. They understand how the frigging game is played. And the way the game is played is you go forward, you stuff the ball in the back of the net, and they are very good at it. And they are also very good at hunting. So we know we're going to be hunted. We have to be careful. And if we're casual, we're going to be punished, and we've seen that. And we respect them for it. And for us to basically have a great game against them, we're going to have to take care of the ball in our defensive third, play it quickly, because they're going to be coming after us. And we're going to have to figure out ways to break down a wonderful team.
Go ahead, second row.
Yeah. Last year you guys played in Cary in front of the home crowd. Coming to the West Coast against Pac-12 teams, what do you expect the crowd reception to be like for you guys?
We've got a pretty good home support coming through with us. I think part of the worry when you come over to the West Coast is that we're not going to have such a strong home crowd. But I mean, when you look out into the stands and you see your mum, your dad, you see Emily Fox, who we're playing for, I think there's no greater thing to play for. And regardless of how many Pac-12 fans will be in the crowd, because that's what it is. It's ACC versus Pac-12 at this point. Then you realise, hey, I'm playing for my mum, I'm playing for my dad, and that's sort of enough.
Very in front.
For the British players, is there anything that you can compare, or how would you compare the college soccer that you're playing? Is there anything in England that it's comparable to? Just is it different than you expected, or I mean, if you compare it to say the top youth and maybe the pros, how would it?
Yeah, I think in England there's not such a college and sports system combined. Most players our age either go play pro or go to college. You kind of don't do both, which is one of the reasons we were attracted to coming to North Carolina, is you get the high quality of both aspects. But I think the soccer-wise, you can definitely compare it to the pro leagues. I mean, we competed with Lyon in pre-season. We played their reserves and we tied 2-2. So I think that, yeah, definitely we're heading to England in the spring, and we're going to be playing against some pro teams out there. So the standard can definitely compare to the pro leagues out in England. and you get the top quality of education on the side too.
And what's your view about the standard of the American, of the college soccer you're playing here?
Yeah, so both Les and I were privileged enough to play on professional teams before we came over to America as complete amateurs. So we played with the likes of myself, Viviane Miedemar, Les, with Ramona Backman, the likes of. So we've seen the benchmark and we've seen kind of where we want to be. And this is just another step in our progression to get there. We're so grateful to be at UNC and we know that it's a crucial part of our development. And I think if we hadn't have come here, we would have been missing something.
Just as a follow to Mike's questions on that, I mean, America, two-time World Cup champion at this point. You have one of the greatest coaches in history right here. What has being in America brought to your game that you think if you stayed in Europe, you would never have had?
I think if anyone knows Anson, he instills this competitive culture into you. That's something that maybe I didn't come with when I first landed in North Carolina. It's definitely something I've developed over my 3 years here, is that every second of every session in the game is you got to compete, and that's the biggest thing that's going to take you to the highest level.
I think not even just as a Brit, I'm sure Tony can speak to this, but just being a soccer player, all in all, when you come to UNC, you develop as a person as well, and I think that's one of the biggest things we overlook. The more this game progresses in women's soccer, the more it will become more business-like, and I think that's what UNC does so well. They don't overlook that we are humans and that we are people that will go on to do hopefully bigger and better things once we step off the soccer field.
You didn't call it football, this is the college coach.
Thank you.
Anson, there's a push to switch college soccer to a 2-semester sport. Randy tweeted that not many women's college coaches have thought about it. What are your thoughts on trying to push college soccer to a 2-semester sport?
Yeah, we got to join the men. We're crazy. The women's game is about 10 years behind the men. And the reason the men have to make that jump is the criticism of the compressed season, the fact you're not playing year-round. And basically, in 10 years, we're going to be there. In fact, I would say 3 or 4 of my top recruits have already been approached by U.S. soccer coaches, and they've been told to sign pro contracts. Obviously, because they're looking at their European counterparts, and over in Europe, of course, kids of this standard, 16-year-olds are all signing pro contracts, and so the great fear U.S. soccer has is if we don't follow suit, we're not going to be able to compete with them anymore. Basically, we're going to be there soon. And trust me, what's going to happen is eventually there's going to be a tipping point. And then it's going to be the incredible terror our men's coach goes through on an annual basis when he's recruiting. Should he recruit a kid that has the potential to jump into the MLS right out of high school? Or should he take a lower level kid because he's been burned so often? I mean, once he was burned like the day before practice began. A kid that had committed to North Carolina and decided to sign with the Philly MLS team. And all of a sudden he's sitting there on a full scholarship that he had extended this kid with no time to recruit another kid. And then a huge hole opened in his defense that he relied on bringing this kid in for. And so we're going to hit that eventually. And there's nothing wrong with a 2-semester model from our perspective. In fact, ideally you play 1 game a week. Because one of the things I hate about the college model, especially in my conference where we play a Thursday-Sunday schedule, which was pushed onto us by a Raider that we had hired from Stanford, who ended up the Virginia coach, trying to follow the West Coast model of Thursday, Sunday. And so if you're on a Thursday, Sunday training and playing model, you don't get to train. So basically every single training session is a taper, so you're not really developing in practice. And it's just a miserable way to try to develop players. So for me, what would be wonderful is 1 game a week, so this way you don't miss a class. So you schedule all of your games on Saturday or Sunday, and you don't miss any classes. And now you get to train. The injury rate, especially for us on the women's side, will plummet. Because right now, because of the ACL issue in the women's game, it's a huge problem for our young girls. Which is why at North Carolina we've always substituted. And trust me, the criticism that I get from actually mostly journalists that don't really understand, that you can't play 2 games a week. And the excuses we get for why a team loses to us because we substitute like it's a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. It protects the girls. And if you're going to press like we do and you don't substitute, you're crazy. And so, yes, I would love a 2-semester model. I would love to play 1 game a week. I'd love to be able to train my girls for a week. And honestly, and you can throw this in there just because I know it'll upset a whole collection of people, I think in the middle we should have a futsal season. And it should be a college-sanctioned futsal season. And if we want to compete with the world, and believe it or not, and I really appreciate the stuff that Mike has written, because of course we get all kinds of criticism about our model. And when we hire someone that's brought into U.S. soccer, here's his first instinct, especially if he's from Holland or one of the countries, we've got to follow the European model. Well, you know what? We are dynastic in women's soccer at a world level. Maybe they should follow our model. And so, yeah, our model's a great model. And why is it a great model? Because we have 320 Division I coaches, and their sole responsibility is the human, physical, and soccer development of the young women they're given. So our player pool is absolutely huge. Now, can we make our platform better? Yes, we can. And we can make it better if we have a 2-semester model. And we can make it even better if the NCAA will sponsor futsal, because that can be what we can do in the middle between these two things. And trust me, we will continue to conquer the world if we can go in that direction.
Anson, just as a follow-up, the futsal, the idea there is that we'll develop technical skills, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the other question is...
and also, let me throw this in because I don't want this to be one-dimensional. Futsal is fun.
Yeah.
And right now what's happening at a youth level is our kids are quitting our game in droves. And I know what it is. I've been to some of these sessions. The kids have to enjoy the session. They have to enjoy the session. And I'll tell you, our kids love futsal. Talk to Mia Hamm, Christine Lilly, Crystal Dunn, Tobin Heath. They loved futsal. We've got to figure out a game that develops them because of the nature of the game. So by playing the game they're developing, but it also has to be fun. And so we got to figure out a way to make sure our game continues to be fun because we're losing kids. And that doesn't bode well for our soccer future. So I just wanted to throw that in to make sure it's not one dimensional.
Yeah, and as far as futsal, ask Katerina Macario about that. What I wanted to ask is, you make a compelling argument. What I haven't heard is another side. So what's holding, why should this, it seems like a no-brainer. Like, what's holding it up?
Well, obviously, if you look at it from the perspective of an athletic director, most of us that play women's lacrosse and men's lacrosse in the spring, we use the same facility. So all of a sudden, what these ADs are thinking, oh, this is nuts. I mean, I can't build 2 separate stadiums for my lacrosse teams and my soccer teams. And so from the perspective of the university itself, this is going to be a major change because we have to figure out ways to do it. So that's one issue. The other issue is, let's face it, as coaches, we're incredibly comfortable. Why? Because we play a fall season and the rest of the year you're golfing or something. So from that perspective, why would a women's coach support this? Then they wait for their camps in the summer. If they have 2,000 kids of summer, they're going to their yacht in between. So yeah, we're leading incredibly comfortable lives. And so trust me, human nature is to be comfortable. And so right now we're all incredibly comfortable. But I look at it from a different perspective. I want to keep kicking everyone's ass in the world, and this is another weapon we can use. And I think if we get there late, we're going to regret it. And we've got some compelling arguments, and all you have to do is to look at the men's side, because they have fought this, and their battle is for survival. So when you look at their arguments are wonderful, and they apply to us as well. And I would hate for us in 10 years to look at this and say, you know what, we jumped too late. So we got to jump now. We got to jump in with the men. We got to support them. We got to go together, and it'll be a game changer. There'll be less injuries. Our players will develop better and faster. We won't have any academic excuses because these will be on weekends when we play our games. It checks every single box in the most positive way.
Here in the second row.
How can you just talk on like a 6-year senior as in Ella Dietrich, the goalkeeper for WSU? And they're almost like another coach on the field, player-wise. how important is it for a school to have a six-year senior of her caliber at their disposal?
Well, obviously it's a weapon. We love obviously our more mature players, and it is a weapon. That person is going to be calm in crisis. They've lived through life, and so that kind of leadership is critical. We respect it so much. We stole this from Urban Meyer. We have a leadership council, so every senior on our team is on the council. We have one junior, one sophomore, one freshman. And obviously when I come into a meeting with them, I have an idea that I would love to go in a certain direction. And without even pushing them, because of their maturity, every single decision they've made, and they make every decision on the team with the exception of who travels, who starts, and how many minutes everyone plays. They make every other decision in my program. I am stunned at how often their decisions are absolutely spot on. So the more mature players you have in your program and on the field, the impact that it has for your success as a culture and during games is extraordinary. So I think it's a wonderful weapon for Washington State.
So backtracking a couple questions almost. For the players, I know Anson touched on it, but what does your squad depth allow you to do in matches?
Yeah, I mean, we have this philosophy this season that's really been played in, that we don't see our team as starters and reserves. We have starters and then the game changers that come in. So, and that's been evident throughout the season with the likes of Rumu Trera coming in and scoring the winner against Florida State, Lexi scoring the opening goal against Duke. So, I mean, definitely we rely on them heavily and they rely on us. Sometimes they've pulled us through games and sometimes it's us. So it's definitely a huge energy when they come in, and they will compete like hell, and we respect each other massively for that.
Positive.
I think that's put it perfectly.
Taylor, anything to add? Any other questions?